What's up, world? I'm Angelica Beener, and this is Milestones, a podcast where my special guests and I take deep dive looks into landmark albums, projects, and people that are celebrating a milestone year. This is going to be an incredible episode, so let's get right to it. I want to say that we are recording from the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, which has so graciously agreed to host us for today's conversation. So please be sure to visit jmih.org to see all of the fantastic things that they have going on and to support their wonderful programs and initiatives. Today, I am honored to be joined by a very special guest. She is a pianist, composer, band leader, educator, and recording artist whose work spans over 6 decades. She has worked alongside artists like Dizzy Gillespie and Nat Adderley, Billy Higgins, Frank Foster, Philly Joe Jones, Eddie Henderson, and on. And I should also say that they had the privilege to work alongside her. And her wonderful, long-standing and intergenerational jazz groups have performed for audiences across the globe for 3 years. She was an artist in residence under the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. She has earned several awards, including the Legends of Jazz Award from this very institution, the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. And she is also the recipient of the Bronx Living Legend Award. To say that she has been paying it forward is an understatement. From elementary students to senior communities and everything in between, she has been a force of inspiration in marginalized spaces, premier academic spaces, and grand stages alike. Through the Elmo Hope Project and El Millennium, which she established with the great jazz bassist Walter Booker Jr., she does tremendous legacy and preservation work through exploring and performing the canon of the piano great Elmo Hope, with whom she has also collaborated and recorded. I affectionately call her Auntie Bertha, and with good reason, which I hope we will get to touch on in this episode. Please welcome a legend to the program, Mrs. Bertha Hope-Booker. Thank you so much for joining me. One of the things that we were talking about was the duo album that you had done with Elmo Hope. And you had mentioned that Johnny Griffin was instrumental in some ways to that coming together. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Johnny Griffin and Elmo were really very good friends, and they used to hang out together. And so he was with Elmo a lot, and the three of us would sometimes be together, and I think he knew some of my work, and he knew that I was involved, although not necessarily pressing for any engagement. But when this opportunity came up for Elmo to record, he suggested that we do something together. I didn't think I was anywhere near ready because I think I was still in that state of deep admiration for the work that Elmo was doing and learning his music, learning his inflections and its style. I just didn't think that I was really up for it, but Elmo said he thought it would be a good idea too, so once I felt that I had a vote of confidence from him, it gave me a little bit more courage to say, okay, let's explore this and see if I measure up. So it was really, I was talking about being nervous.
You're like, that was nerve-wracking, huh?
I don't know how I got through it. I think some preparation helped me to not be so nervous for the date itself, because we did go to studios downtown in Manhattan and practiced on 2 pianos. I got a little bit more courage and confidence from that, because pianists very rarely get an opportunity to play with each other. They may imagine what it might sound like, but until you do it, there are so many little fragments that you have to be concerned about, and some you miss, some you get, because it's not like 2 separate pianists. You have to think as that one. So you're really not playing solo piano. It's not 2 solo pianos anymore. It's a duet. And because you do it so rarely, it offers a very unique opportunity to work in a more cohesive way and to be really aware of how you can make the music happen and not sound like a rhythmic or harmonic fight.
Wow. That part, I don't know why that part, didn't even think of that part. Yeah, like you said, two becoming one.
Yes.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, I read somewhere that at one point, Art Blakey was interested in working with you or having you be part of the Messengers or whatever he was working on at the time. Is this a true story?
Yes, it's true.
Amazing.
My life at that particular point was not ready to absorb Art Blakey. I'll put it like that. And I had been going to hear him for a long time. I was really very friendly with his daughter, Evelyn, who was a singer. He had two children who were musicians. Art Blakey Jr. was a drummer, and his sister, Evelyn, was a wonderful blues singer. I think she left a few recordings behind. They might be bootleg. I don't know if she recorded for a label or not, but the first time I went to Europe, I went with an Evelyn Blakey group of all women.
You're kidding.
So I got to know her, and then she would invite me whenever Art was working in town to come and listen to them. I had a lot of backstage conversations with other members in the band, and some of it was high praise, and some of it was the kind of way they understood the greatness and genius of Art Blakey and what he had to offer their careers. And the other, not so much, not such high praise, just a reality check about what was going on at the time. My own life had just taken a dip, and I was just coming out of a really bad situation and just learning how to reorient myself after a long period of time of just contemplation and reorganizing my life and getting another start and just getting my own life restarted.
Yes.
The psychological part. And that was about the time he asked me to go. He gave me this long spiel, which was really true. He said, at the time I had taken a job as a Head Start teacher. And so he kept saying, how are you going to learn how to play the piano teaching kids? You can't learn how to play the piano by doing something else. Mm-hmm. You have to learn how to play with a band, in a band. Mm-hmm. And then he told me the wonderful things that would happen for me if I joined the band. And all of them were true. I learned how to be a leader. He said I could write for the band, I could arrange, just get the band together and call him to the rehearsal, and you'll be able to you'll be recognized and you'll have your own career when you leave me. And I thought about it for a while, but I knew I wasn't strong enough to do it. Mm. But I did find out he was really serious about having a woman in the band because that same year he took Joanne Burkeen.
Got it.
And that was a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing that he broke that barrier.
Yeah.
Being one of the major bands to be involved in.
Right.
I mean, Art Blakey is like one of the training ground bands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the street naming that happened in 2016, I believe, in the Bronx.
Yes.
And just your work around making that happen. I'm sure you had something to do with that as well. Curiously,
I have to be honest, my daughter, Monica Mohope, is the one who really put together the package, practically a dissertation, a great package that the council couldn't refuse, I think. But it was instigated by a music lover named Robert Gums, for whom that was his neighborhood also, and he started the idea of the greats who had been living in that neighborhood with street naming.
Amazing.
And because in this city, you have to be deceased to be honored. In other cities, there are some, you can have a street named for you while you're still alive. But
Wow.
yeah, but here it's a matter of doing it after the person has left us. That was a wonderful experience to see Elmo be honored by the city council for the idea that he was growing up, spent a lot of his youth on that little short street that was packed with artists of every stripe. There were dancers, actors, a lot of musicians. It was just amazing to see how much talent there was in that little street that was tucked away between two major streets, and if you didn't live there or know somebody there, you'd hardly know the street was there. So that was quite an exciting adventure.
This is Lyman Place you're talking about, right?
Place.
And this is
Lyman
how our
Place.
families came to know each other.
Each other, yes.
On Lyman Place, right?
On Lyman Place, the Hopes and the Smiths, I think, they lived maybe a door apart. So I feel like I'm an honorary member of the Smith family.
That's
For
right,
sure.
you absolutely are. Hence, Aunt Bertha. Yes, and then El Millennium.
El Millennium came about because for some years before, I had been playing the music with a lot of wonderful musicians, just one-off, or whenever I had the opportunity to hire a band and rehearse enough to introduce the music, I would do that. Many musicians were involved before El Millennium, which was the turn of the century. That's why I named it that.
Love that.
Millennium, El Millennium. But before that, whenever I would get out-of-town gigs, I would turn them into Elmo Hope gigs. I taught the music to people like Steve Nelson, the Vibus, and Gretchen Mancour, and Ronnie Ben-Hur was part of learning that music. Then I had the opportunity through Booker, because he was so well-known and well-loved and he worked with so many people. He helped me put together one of the first bands that actually was able to work. And that included Virgil Jones, the trumpet player, and Charles Davis, tenor saxophone, Leroy Williams on drums, Booker, and me. And the final band that ended up recording that was Junior Cook was the tenor player in that band. And that was the band that stayed together, I think, the longest and rehearsed and was able to move around. Junior Cook was in that band. There's a two-tenor selection on one of the recordings with a tenor player named Dave Rickenberg, who I think is an educator now. And then Leroy Williams or Jimmy Cobb was the other drummer, and Booker and me. Booker had expressed the desire, along with Junior Cook, to learn some of Elmo's music, and that's what really inspired the band. I had been trying to put together a band of people that didn't include me for a long time, and I was talking to Billy Joe Jones about it, and I was just pestering so many people. Would you be interested in just learning a couple of his tunes?
Yeah.
And let's help get his music into wider recognition. But most people are interested in their own music. So I was lamenting to Philly Joe, and he said, you need to put the band together. And I said, I don't think I can play this music well enough to be head of the band. He said, sure you can. And then he looked at my hand. He said, have you been practicing? He looked to see if my fingernails were short. He went, have you been practicing? I said, yes. He said, I'm going to tell you, I think you should put the band together yourself. Pick 12 songs. Don't try to build the whole mountain in a day. Just pick 12 songs. You survey the music and pick the 12 that you think would make a nice presentation. And just leave it at that for right now. 12 songs. And invite a group of musicians together to see what it sounds like. And you'll be fine.
Wow.
So that's what I got. I'm very grateful to him just listening to me and giving me the courage to think that I could do it myself.
Yeah, because a lot of times I think in all fields or when we have something that we're really passionate about and we don't realize that we're the conduit, we're the one that is, sometimes we think we just have the idea. It's no, and you actually are the engine too.
You are the one.
You're the one.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did learn that, and so much, and even from so many other people's interpretation of the music, and just that it sounds new and fresh. I really think because it was so underplayed that it has a very fresh sound for music from that era. Now it's because people have not played it so much, but now, as I've been talking about the music and talking to people about it, I'm getting to meet people all over the world that say that there are little Elmo Hope cults in places in Europe, in Denmark, where Dexter Gordon wanted Elmo to join him there. So I think that he had an influence on it, and places I recorded with a guitarist who knew a great deal of his music. He said he knew pianists who knew practically the whole book that he wrote. Just amazing.
Yeah.
People that I've met from Ukraine and from Russia, from just all over the world who know the music. And there's an Armenian gentleman who's done it to a video. The music is in a movie. I don't know how legitimate. I don't know how they did that.
But Kurt Rosenwinkel, the guitar player, he recorded a song dedicated to Elmo Hope called Mr. Hope.
Oh, he did.
I'm going to send it to you.
Oh,
it's
please
a
do.
great tune. And Kurt being one of the biggest guitar players of our generation, writing a song called Mr. Hope. I hope people know that's who that's for. I'm pretty sure they do. But I just wanted to throw that into your point.
Oh, I'm glad you told me that.
Yeah. You were coming through the ranks at a time where people were really developing their own sound. The sound that I think most closely influenced where we are today happened in that time. Those are still the heroes people talk about.
Yeah.
Train and Monk and Elmo and Bud, and just those people are still like our North Stars.
Yes.
I feel. And you have recorded a lot of your own material. You are a prolific composer as well as pianist. And I would love to ask you about that, your approach to composing, but also why it's important to write your own music.
I think, aside from the fact that jazz musicians are writing as they play, that's really primary, and it's never supposed to be the same. You can take one phrase and repeat it, but that's not quite the same as the music not being the same as it goes forward in time. It's very connected to now. I hear music in my head all day long, and most of the night. I just have to shut off this orchestra going on in my head. That's impossible for me to capture most of what's happening with me, so I have to zero in and really sit down and decide to write the compositions. My process just changes depending on time and place and motivation, what motivated the piece or what drives me to go get a pencil quick and get it down. Because I still write on real paper. I find it difficult to write on the computer, and the music is different when I've written on the computer, and I'm not quite satisfied with what happens to my aesthetics on the computer. So I still write by hand, and some pieces come to me very easily. Maybe the back part of a composition might come first, and it feels like it's not the beginning. So then I really work to compose the beginning or the middle, or some songs seem like they require a middle, but I could mechanically put one in, but aesthetically it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I could stick a bridge in there, but I don't think what I wrote requires a bridge. So you could look at it as being unfinished. I haven't written any really long pieces, but I guarantee you there's more still up here than has hit the page. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm beginning to write more and more each day, but sometimes it's a fragment. It's something that comes to me, and like when I was on a Japanese trip once, I was really depressed because I had had some very racist things happen to me in Japan on a trip where I was playing solo piano. And I had an incident that caused me to call the agent and say, I don't want to stay here anymore, and explained what happened. And she intervened and calmed me down. I did sign a contract, and I was there for 6 months.
6 months? Oh, wow.
6 months, which I loved Japan, and I'd never encountered any problems before. But that incident inspired a whole range of music. And then just where I was, there were flagpoles out front, and the wind blowing and flapping against the pole. I composed a piece built on that sound.
Wow.
And there were some bird calls that I heard, and I composed a piece on that sound. I have one piece that I'm working on now that is, the rhythm is based on mechanical sounds when you have an MRI done. I don't know if you've ever had an MRI.
I have,
and they are horrible experiences.
They are.
And so I finally learned how to make music.
I love that. I was saying one time when I was pregnant with my son, and they've had me in there, and then it's that sounds like sneakers in a dryer, and he was going crazy. Get me out of here! I don't like this. And I said, we have to stop. He doesn't like this. We have to stop.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I always say Riley was bossing me around from before he came out. He's, nope, this is too it. And I would imagine what that sounds like to a baby in the womb. That it's a terrible sound. But it is rhythmic in some ways.
It is, yeah. So I, instead of fighting it, finally managed to use inspirations for writing things come from a myriad of places. And
was composing always important to you as much as
I don't think so, but I do know that in order to find out who you really are, I think that's how you find out some of the things that you've gathered from your learning experiences. And I never took composition courses. I don't have a degree in music, so I didn't go through that very formalized training that you get about how to compose certain things, what the elements of them are in a classical sense or even in a jazz sense. So most of my composing is like really teaching me what other things I have to offer except getting better on the piano, or putting those compositional skills together in what the piano sounds like under my finger.
Wow, I love that. On your album, Nothing But Love,
Yeah.
you sing.
Oh.
You sing, yeah. I love, that's probably my favorite song on the album. I think it closes the album.
Is that Nothing But Love, that song?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's singing on that.
Yes, exactly. It's you and Walter Booker and is it Jimmy Cobb on that record? But yeah, I do want to ask you about the trio that you had, the recording trio that you worked with, which was Jimmy Cobb and Walter Booker Jr., who is your second love. And what was it like recording with these giants and then everything that you bring to the table as a
God.
legend in your own right? What was that like?
Well, it was just frightening. That's mostly what it was. I didn't know how elastic my time was until I played with Walter. And he and Jimmy Cobb were both raised in D.C. They both were growing up in Washington, D.C., and they did not know each other there. They met, so to speak, on the road, and they worked together for so many years, 20 or more. First, I think, with Cannonball and Nat Adderley, and then with Sarah Bond, or maybe it was the other way around. Mm-hmm. But they worked maybe 20, 25 years together. They were just like this. What a great bassist and drummer to play with. If you can't find yourself in that cradle, you're pretty sad. And Jimmy's time was just so immaculate, and so was Booker. Booker is really the timekeeper. The bass player is really the person who establishes the time, not the drummer. Mm-hmm. But once the two of them decided where that was, wherever Booker decided where it was, and Jimmy was there to surround that sound, it was just mind-blowing for me. It was, I think, the first drummer that I had any real experience with, but he was very mercurial, Billy Higgins. Mm-hmm. And I was much younger, and I knew a lot less about how to behave in the rhythm section. It's just an ongoing adjustment. And I remember listening to some of my favorite piano players, and then being hanging around in the green room and hearing the drummer and the bass players. Where were you going tonight? What fire were you going to? Whoa. So I realized, this is an ongoing situation, that delicate balance between piano, bass, and drums, that triangle that you have to be aware of all the time. It was very exciting. And every time I ever played with them, I always learned something more nuanced about when to play, when not to play, how to share. I've been a student of all the great musicians that I've been introduced to ever since I've been playing. I'm the student.
Wow. I think it's like how when Sonny Rollins says, you never stop paying dues.
Yeah.
No matter where we get.
That's right.
And how much we accomplish. We're always the student, I think. And sometimes we're both. We're the master and the...
And yes, I agree with that, because sometimes I never know exactly how much influence I've had on somebody else, and that people are listening to what I say.
Yes, we're listening.
Yeah, so that's mind-blowing to think that I have enough. I think my stamina and the fact that I've endured and the fact that I'm still here as a witness and as a participant.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully still being an inspiration to younger people who are joining us by the droves and are finding less and less places to play, more and more musicians, and conditions, meeting the conditions that they have to endure. To be an inspiration to those people to try and do something to improve the conditions, and this music is going to go forward with your impetus and your cooperation, your love, your compassion, your endurance.
Absolutely. So. And to that point, great working bands, and they include women, which I think is incredible. Your longtime bassist, Kim Clark, Luciana Padmore, another Bronx native.
Yes.
Oh, shout out the Bronx.
Right.
And then your quintet with those two women, and Jean and Eddie. And can you talk about from your perspective, what it takes to have longevity as a working band, and also as a woman who I would think every woman jazz musician is looking up to, who's come after you. What does it mean to sit in that position for these women that have been with you for so long, these incredible musicians?
I never see myself in that particular position, but I'm beginning to realize that I'm there. And when I first started playing, I met one other woman who was a musician. She hired me. She played alto sax. Her name was Vi Red. And she's a woman that fronted her own band, but a lot of people don't know about her, and that's when I was a kid. When I first started playing in Los Angeles as a kid, I didn't know any other women musicians, and I never thought about it. Most of the women played piano or they sang. There were no horns to even think about hiring it if I had been in that position. But so fast forward to being in New York, still didn't know any women musicians until a woman came along who found it was important that women should know each other, and she was in a position to know who they were. Kobe Narita was her name, and she ran the Black Collective, had musicians like Jimmy Owens and Jimmy Heath and Billy Harper. They were involved. She helped to keep those men alive with gigs. And as ancillary to that, she saw that women didn't know each other. So she introduced all the women that I knew then, which had to go back to the late 60s, early 70s, to each other. And then we realized now we know we exist. But I had to retrain my brain. Now I can hire a woman saxophone player. Around 1982, that's when I finally hung up my teaching gloves. And I joined an all-women's band, 17 pieces.
Wow.
All women. That band was the precursor to Diva. Every person who was in that band probably auditioned for Diva, and quite a few of them ended up in Diva.
Can you explain to the audience what Diva is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Diva was all women's jazz band put together by a man named Stanley Kay. I guess one thing was to prove that there are enough women out here who can do this, and I'm going to help them get there. But this women's band that I joined was a group of wonderful musicians. She hired Teo Macero of Miles Davis fame to rehearse the band and to show us how to sound really big and full. And we recorded, I think she recorded maybe 3 CDs. I'm on 2 of them. And it could stand the test of time, but nobody knows about that record.
It brings me to something. I wanted to ask you about something. I saw a recent New York Times profile on Jeremy Pelt, who has a book series, Griot.
Right.
And you were one of his inaugural interviewees for the first edition. Right. I actually have it here.
Yes.
Because I want you to sign my book.
Oh, okay. I'll be glad to.
Thank you. But for the Times piece, it says, in Griot Volume 1, the pianist Bertha Hope, 87, identifies herself as a proud Black woman in an industry where Black women have had to struggle for a seat at the table. In a phone interview, she says that sharing her story with Pelt felt validating. And this is a quote from you: "There's just so many ways we as Black musicians have been overlooked, and we haven't really been asked what we think about situations or what our lives have been like or what the impact of the industry has been on our career." And then you're a Black woman in a male-dominated space in an industry that creates a lot of hurdles for women at times. Intentionally, unintentionally, subconsciously, maybe sometimes. I feel like there's 2 ways that women can deal with being a woman in jazz, right? Like you can really lean into it or lean away from it. Some women lean away from it in the way that they're saying, I don't want you to see me as a woman jazz musician. I just want you to see me as a jazz musician. You lean into your femininity. You lean into those overlapping identities that you have, being Black, being a woman, being a musician. Why is it important to you to not make being a woman central to the whole picture, if that makes sense?
Oh, I don't think that I need to do any more to exacerbate a situation that already exists, because I think that people still see us as women before they see us as musicians, or before they put a label on good musician, bad musician, incredible musician, beautiful musician, whatever adjective they want to give. I think they're already doing that. And I just feel like I'm going to always be a woman, and I'm always going to be a musician, a practicing musician, as long as I'm able to do that. And I never consciously thought of, when I hired Luciana Padmore, for instance, she's just a really good drummer. And I'm really proud of the fact that she is a woman, but she can hold her own to any man. That's the way I feel. Kim Clark has 10 times more experience than I have. A lot of people don't really know, because she's more of a force behind the scenes than she is in terms of being interviewed or recognized on that level. But she does a tremendous lot of work, and she has these layers of, she's a funk bass player with a 5-string bass. She plays 4-string electric bass and 5-string.
Wow.
And I feel like when we get to know each other better, we become better. And we've been kicked around. We eat together, we socialize together. And when we talk about the ways that some male musicians have viewed us, treated us, it almost becomes a feeling of we have to hang on to each other in order to feel like we're making our own seat at the table by this union. And some of it hasn't been intentional. When I found out, I always think now first of women, and I have a real hierarchy to who I hire now. And first I'm looking for the women who are available, and the best women. I don't profess to be or will ever be in the higher echelons of like virtuosity on the piano. I'm not a virtuosic pianist, but I enjoy working with other women and seeing how powerful we are when we are. And we're still having the same kind of situations confront us that are based on racism, on sexism, ageism, and getting hired or getting recognized. And if I find women who are compatible, who also play horns, I would add them to the roster. Right now, there's a very nice mix of 3-2 in my band.
I love it.
And it has a nice kind of a feeling to our rehearsals and to what they add. And they are now at a position where they don't feel like I'm running the show. What do you offer? What can you tell me about how we can make this song better? How are your chops on those high notes? Just working together, but really being aware that women still have an upward battle. But I like this band that I'm with now. I like the ratio of men to women. I'm always looking to put other bands together in case they're not available. If I were in great demand, I could retain people for the next 5 months, because what happens in a band like this is that these people know your music the best. And along comes a tour, and then they all go on that tour, and then here come 2 gigs for this band maybe, and I have to start all over again looking for somebody. So I'm expanding the music. More people have the music now, so that there'll always be really good replacements. So they'll all be the A band. I won't have a
Exactly.
B band or tier 1. This is my A band. This is my B band. No, I want all the bands to be A band.
Right.
And I also want them to enjoy the music. It's not just a gig. This is a mission, really, for me. Keep on teaching more and more people the music, and to have them enjoy bringing it forward.
Wow. I think that's it. I could obviously talk to you all day long, but I know other people that you need to talk to today, and I'm just very grateful that you've made the time twice to sit and talk to me.
I'm so honored. I really am, and I'm very grateful.
Wow. The great Bertha Hope-Booker, everybody. Thank you to the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. You can go to, where should people find you? Bertha Hope dot something or other?
BerthaHope.net is my website, and the band is for hire.
There we go. It doesn't get any better than that. Bertha Hope-Booker. Thank you.
Thank you.